Believe it or not, bugged items drop all the time in Diablo 2, but most people don't know what to look for. From a programming standpoint, these items were not intended to spawn with the mods that they have. And no, we're not talking about bugged tiles or any of the other common client-created crazy items. We're talking about items that you can legitimately find within regular gameplay. So in this video, we're gonna look at a little bit of the programming behind Diablo 2 and how that leads to some items dropping or spawning with mods that they shouldn't have. Let's dive in. I'm gonna start by talking about a commonly known bugged item that you might already be familiar with in Diablo 2. And that item is the EBugged Armor. Just in case you're not familiar with it, I'll try to briefly explain what happens when you ebug an armor. Ebugging an armor refers to applying the Horadric Cube recipe to add sockets to a basic item, and that process in turn creating a lot more defense on the item than should actually be there. All ethereal armors in Diablo 2 spawn with a 50% defense modifier on them. However, a bug exists where when you apply the formula to add sockets to this base item through the Horadric Cube, that modifier is added again. You may remember from the history of duping that base items don't actually have unique item IDs. So when you create a new base item in the Horadric Cube, you're actually creating an entirely new item. Because of this, the game references the previously known defense state and adds the 50% defense modifier onto it again. This double application of the 50% defense bonus was definitely not intended and happens because of a miscommunication between Diablo's engine and the actual programming. I'll get more into that in a second. But thanks to this little glitch, it's possible to spawn armors that have ungodly amounts of defense on them. And that's where we get this term ebugged from, or ethereal bugged armors. And that's not the only bug that's been associated with the new Horadric Cube formulas that were added in patch 1.10. Another item that you used to be able to legitimately bug in the game was any item socketed with a Zod rune. When they first introduced the Horadric Cube formulas in patch 1.10, they introduced a formula that would allow you to take the gems out of a socketed item. This particular formula, instead of generating an entirely new item, just changes a property about that item. In this case, whatever gems are in it, it removes those gems. However, the Zod rune prior to patch 1.10 actually worked a little differently. Instead of the rune adding an attribute to the item, it actually took something away. To go a little deeper, when you used to put a Zod rune into an item, instead of adding the indestructible mod, which is what Zod's known for, it actually just removed the durability attribute of the item. Any item in Diablo 2 that does not have a durability is assumed to be indestructible. This slight oversight of how Zod works when inserted into an item led to you being able to create some interesting bugged items back in the day. When you removed the Zod rune from your socketed item, the fact that the durability had been removed did not change. So the game would still recognize that the item was indestructible, even though the Zod rune was no longer in it. This is not something that people had to use a third-party program for. This actually used to be legitimately possible in regular gameplay. But you probably want to know more about the bugged items that can still spawn in Diablo 2. So let me ask you this. Have you ever seen a Holy Shield scepter? More commonly, it would be a call to arms made inside of a scepter with Holy Shield on it. Yeah, that item's not supposed to exist. Let me explain. Certain skills were actually not supposed to spawn on some class-specific items. Holy Shield is a skill that is not supposed to spawn on a Paladin Scepter, along with the skill Smite. The reason Blizzard programmed it that way is completely up to them, but for whatever reason, there's a list of skills called Forbidden Skills that are not supposed to spawn on class-specific items. Remember how I said I would talk more about the game engine's relationship to the programming of the actual game? Let's get into that now. The way that it was programmed for certain forbidden skills to not spawn on an item Makes a lot of sense. Whenever an item is generated with a forbidden skill, that particular skill, based on the coding, would just be rolled again. It was initially programmed to do that as many times as it took to get a non-forbidden skill. That's all fine and dandy and looks like great programming. However, game engines, if they're designed the right way, are designed to make it not possible for infinite loops to happen. So while the programming was sound for the actual code, the game engine saw the possibility for an infinite loop. So after 6 tries, after 6 respawns of a forbidden skill on the item, the 7th roll, no matter what that skill was, would stick on the item. And you wondered why Holy Shield Scepters are so rare and expensive? That's why. It's extremely rare to see the skill Holy Shield on a scepter. So that's another bugged item that can legitimately spawn in Diablo 2. The same is true for the skill Whirlwind on a barb helm. Now the reason that that's so insane is, can you imagine making a low-level dueler that has a helm that just gives you the skill Whirlwind without you having to put a single point into any combat skill in the Barbarian combat skill tree? In fact, every single combat skill besides Leap on the Barbarian skill tree is actually a forbidden skill. So that's why it's significantly more common to actually find a bugged barb helm that has a combat skill on it than it is to find any of the other forbidden skills on items. You may notice that when you find barb helms, they tend to have non-combat skills that are generated on them, and it's because of that reason. The same is also true for the skill Poison Dagger on wands and necro shields, but nobody really uses that skill anyway. Last and certainly least, there's also a bug that can spawn on legitimate Diablo 2 items known as the durability bug. Whenever an item rolls as a unique, but there's not a corresponding unique that it could possibly roll into, the item gets re-rolled into a rare with a ridiculous amount of durability. Some of the reasons that commonly make that happen is, for example, if you find a unique diadem, but you're on non-ladder, it has to re-roll into a rare. This is also known to happen quite a bit if you play Diablo 2 Classic. There's a lot of items that can roll in Classic that have no corresponding uniques associated with them. All of those rolls have to be re-rolled back into a rare, and those will definitely cause the durability bug. So the next time you're magic finding in your Diablo 2 experience, keep a special eye out for the items that we talked about today. If you find an item with one of these ridiculous attributes that should not exist on the item, you, my friend, have found yourself a legitimate bugged item in Diablo 2. A very, very rare find. And there you have it. I hope you found this video useful or entertaining or informative, or in some way have walked away with something positive from all of the random shit I know about Diablo 2 from my many, many embarrassing years of play on this game. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.